There was a time when Evelyn believed that love, no matter how distant, always found its way back home. She used to say it often, almost like a quiet prayer she repeated to herself, especially on the nights when the silence in her house felt too loud to ignore. At 69, Evelyn didn't fear growing old. What she feared was becoming invisible. She lived in a modest apartment on the third floor of an old building in Boston. It wasn't a place anyone would notice. The walls were plain, the furniture was simple, and the windows overlooked a street that was always busy, yet never felt connected to her life. People passed by every day, rushing somewhere, chasing something, living lives that had no space for someone like her. Once her life had been different. She had a daughter, Claire, and for a long time, Claire was her entire world. Evelyn had raised her alone after a difficult divorce. There were years when money was tight, when she skipped meals just to make sure Claire had enough. There were nights she stayed awake, worrying about bills, about school fees, about whether she was doing enough. But Claire never saw those struggles. Evelyn made sure of that. To her daughter, she was always smiling, always strong, always there. And maybe that was her mistake, because when you spend your whole life hiding your pain, people begin to believe you never had any. Claire grew up to be independent, ambitious, and distant in ways Evelyn didn't understand at first. She moved away, built her own life, and slowly, without any clear moment of change, became someone Evelyn no longer recognized. Their conversations became formal, polite, careful, like two strangers trying not to say the wrong thing. Evelyn never complained. She told herself this was normal. This was what children did. They grew up and moved on. But some nights, she would sit on the edge of her bed, holding her phone, reading old messages. Messages from years ago. Simple things. Mom, I'll be late today. Can you make my favorite dinner? I love you. 3 words that slowly disappeared, without her noticing when they stopped. One afternoon, while cleaning an old drawer, Evelyn found a small box. Inside it were drawings Claire had made as a child. Stick figures, uneven hearts, messy handwriting. On one of the papers, in large, shaky letters, it said, "My mom is my best friend." Evelyn stared at those words for a long time, not crying, not smiling, just remembering. That night, she decided to call Claire, not because something was wrong, not because she needed anything, just to hear her voice. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times, then it went to voicemail. Evelyn didn't leave a message. She never did. Instead, she put the phone down gently, as if even that small sound might disturb something fragile inside her. Days passed. Life continued, but something inside Evelyn had changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a door closing that no one else noticed. She stopped expecting calls. She stopped checking her phone. She stopped telling herself stories about how things would get better. Instead, she began to live in memories. She would sit by the window in the evenings, watching the city lights flicker on, remembering the days when Claire would sit beside her, talking endlessly about school, friends, dreams. Back then, time felt slow, endless. Now it felt like everything had already passed. One morning, Evelyn didn't get out of bed. It wasn't pain. It wasn't illness. It was something harder to explain. A quiet exhaustion, the kind that builds over years when you keep giving love but slowly forget what it feels like to receive it. Later that day, a neighbor knocked on her door. Then again, when there was no response, they called for help. Evelyn was found lying peacefully, as if she had simply fallen asleep. There was no struggle, no sign of fear, just stillness. Days later, Claire stood in that same apartment. The place felt smaller than she remembered, quieter. She walked slowly through the rooms, touching things she hadn't seen in years. The old couch, the kitchen table, the window where her mother used to sit. And then she found the box, the drawings, the memories, and that one paper, "My mom is my best friend." Claire sat down on the floor, holding it in her hands, as something inside her finally broke. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply, because for the first time she realized her mother had never stopped loving her. She had only stopped being seen. Sometimes the people who love us the most don't ask for attention. They don't demand time. They don't remind us what we owe them. And that's exactly why we forget them until one day we remember everything when there's no one left to hear it.